Some councils around the country are slamming the brakes on the government's proposal to raise speed limits, saying they overwhelmingly don't agree. Auckland Council has voted strongly against the government's push to go faster. In 2020, much of the CBD became the 30k zone, frustrating drivers. So National went to the election saying, "Whoop, they'll overturn this. Yep, we'll change it back." But the council said, hang on, not so fast. It remarkably found something that they agreed on, and they joined in a group hug to oppose the government's plan to raise the speed limits back to where they were. Greg Murphy, former race car champion, says those wanting to keep the lower speed limits have no idea what they're wiring on about, basically, and they're not experienced and don't know enough. And he joins us now. Murph, g'day. Nice to have you on the program.
Hey, Duncan. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. What's the guts of this then? Government says it's going to do something, people vote for it, and then the council says no.
Yeah, listen, I think there's a little bit more to it, as there usually is. I think definitely there's some changes that were made that were not well thought out by the previous government, and now there's needs to be some sort of rectifying of those decisions, because there was stuff done, blanket changes that were not fit for purpose 24/7. I agree that, around schools and things, there needs to be some change, and there has been a lot of change, but those speed limits implemented do not work 24/7. Variable speed limits in a lot of cases needed to be put in place, but being it was fast-tracked, it wasn't thought out well enough, and therefore it's created other issues. So, listen, there's always need for update and change, and it's not just the slow stuff. There's the high-speed stuff as well, and where areas of, like around where I live in Hawke's Bay, have slowly been changing from rural to semi-rural to now built up residential. We've been a bit slow to get on the act on that, but this little war of words around council versus government, and again, I think it's a lot of it's people that are just wanting to make noise rather than actually look at the issue properly and actually fix it accordingly. And again, I don't think experts are necessarily being used in these areas.
No, I think you're right. I think councillors aren't experts in everything. In fact, they're probably experts in not much at all. And when you have 18-3 vote against the government push, who's in power here? Did the government have a mandate, or is it the council that has the mandate? Who's the boss?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think this is a problem with a lot of things, isn't it, these days around all this kind of stuff? Who's actually in charge, and why are we even talking about it in some cases? This is an issue that has been raised because of a lack of attention for a very, very long time. And as I say, a lot of stuff has been not fit for purpose for a long time, and now there's been some change, and the knee-jerk stuff wasn't, as I say, has caused the problem in the first place. There needed to be better interaction, consultation around these, and better thought out processes that don't go then and cause issues with the public. Just making a change for the sake of making change is a big issue, and something that is happening far too much around the place because someone has been given a job to do it. So let's just make a change for the sake of it.
Yes, they give it a white coat and a clipboard, and they're told to do something. So they go and do it to the entire city, and it doesn't work. Blanket rules don't work. I mean, blanket rules are put in place because we're damn lazy and we're cutting corners in terms of doing our work on it. There are certain places that are required to go slow, but not everywhere.
Definitely cutting corners. I mean, and it's more than just around the cities and bits and pieces as well. I mean, there's a huge amount of examples of where there was knee-jerk reactions by the previous government, and it angered a lot of people by these changes. And also, there was supposed to be a consultation submission process. And it was actually a bit of cloak and daggers kind of stuff, where the submissions were put in by residents and communities around changes to speeds, and yet NZTA had already made the decisions and they were already well underway. The consultation ended up just an absolute waste of everyone's time, and the speed changes were made regardless, and it upset a huge amount of people, and we were sort of affected by that down here in Hawke's Bay with State Highway 5.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. 80, it's 80, isn't it? Right the way through.
Well, there's a lot of irony because the section from the turnoff at Bayview that goes through Eskdale was kept at 100, And that was part, and this is my point about how we haven't got experts making decisions. That section should have been 80 because it's quite built up now. There's a lot of businesses and community schools and also residents living on that bit of road, and that bit was kept 100, while other bits that were clearly 100 were brought down to 80, and that was a knee-jerk based on previous statistics that had actually been changed through some really good police management.
What about schools, outside schools? So there's this push to have, I think it's 30 now around schools, but to have it all the time, all day, all night. So it's a 24/7 blanket rule. When some argue that, well, you need it between the drop-off hours and the pick-up hours, but then Carolyn Perry from Break goes out there and says, well, no, most of the accidents happen outside of pick-up and drop-off time.
Well, then that's the case for every bit of road everywhere then, because what's that got to do with the school? Let me go back. The issue starts with the failure that we have had for decades and decades in not preparing drivers accordingly, right from the beginning, Duncan. And people will crash in every conceivable situation. I mean, the Hawke's Bay Expressway, which is now not an expressway because of the wire barriers that have been installed in it, it's now pretty much a car park most of the time. There is never not damage to that wire barrier. At the moment, there is 5 sections in one, I think it's like 3-kilometre section of wire barrier, perfectly good bit of road. The damage to the wire barrier, and some of it has been there for 4, 5, 6 weeks, the damage, not fixed. It just gets left. There's massive issues here. So this bit of road is perfectly good, yet there's this amount of damage to it, right? Now, why is this happening? Why are people crashing into a wire barrier constantly in a perfectly good bit of road? There's a lot of reasons for it. Now, why are people crashing into each other at 20 kilometres an hour on the motorway? Because they're not paying attention to what's going on in front of them.
They are distracted. Yeah.
But the distraction in this country now is a runaway train. We will never fix it. It's not possible to fix because the culture now and the way people treat the system is with disdain. I mean, we've got so many issues on our roads. So for me, yes, there's lots and lots of things we should be doing. We're not doing very many, and we're targeting the low-hanging fruit, the absolute dead set low-hanging fruit, which is let's lower the speeds and that'll fix it. It doesn't fix it.
No, I reckon
it does not.
I reckon it's madness. This whole the road to zero, that was crap, and then this whole thing on speed. Yes, if you're going fast and if you crash, you're more likely to injure yourself. But the numbers of people having accidents and dying as a result of distracted drivers is up near 50% now. That's where the issue is. It's people with dogs on their laps, phones in their hand, texting and on the phone, and also changing their radio. It's bloody ridiculous.
Yep, and it's, as I say, it's a runaway train. But if you're not preparing people accordingly, and we don't have proper deterrence in place and or penalties to try and actually stem the flow, then we've all got to accept that it's only going to get a lot worse. Now, we've got friends, and my kids have gone recently through getting licenses. And I was talking to a friend the other day about her son who failed his learner's license twice, right? And we started talking about that. And the reason why he failed it twice was he got to questions both times through when he failed that he couldn't align the correct answer to the question. Now, he couldn't align the correct answer to the question because he didn't know what the answer was. He just read it and memorized it through doing all the practice tests, and then aligned the answer with the question.
Yes.
Right? But he didn't know why. He didn't know why that answer was the right answer. It's just that he memorized it. So we're not learning. So the kids don't learn why the answers to the questions are the answers. Right? That doesn't happen. They are memorizing what those answers are. So there's no learning there. And then when they go and do their restricted driver's test, right, the driver trainer that's taken them for the lessons takes them around the restricted driving course that they're going to be tested on. So they memorize what they need to do. They don't learn. Yeah. They memorize.
I think that's
and then then they go and spend $280 or $260 doing the defensive driving course to get 6 months off their restricted license, which is the most critical phase of the graduated licensing system. Get 6 months off, but it's not a pass or a fail. You go and sit in the classroom.
Yeah.
Right? It's a discount.
Yeah.
And so what are you learning? You're not learning absolutely anything.
Yeah, no, I've heard you on this a number of times, and I'm with you. I'm totally with you. 100% support you on this. Just very, very quickly before we go, should slow drivers be fined more?
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's never going to happen. Yes, there's a lot of that going on around the place. Police don't have enough resources. It is, mate. I mean, it's going to be a continued problem. There should be more sort of awareness about it, and there should be, I don't know about fine, but definitely pulled over and talked to. But again, police are already under resourced. I'm not sure how we're going to manage that one.
Some ignorant drivers around. Hey, good on you, Murph. Always appreciate your time and support what you're doing, mate.
Thanks,
Cheers. Okay.
Garner.